Right. So today we're going to be diving into something that's
Right.
been like really blowing my mind lately, and that's emergence.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about how like a single ant like can't really do much on its own right? But
Right.
then like when you have like a whole colony of ants,
Yeah.
they can like build these intricate structures and
Right.
wage wars and like even farm,
It's remarkable,
Well, it is. It's like,
isn't it? The colony becomes like this complex system
Yes.
with abilities that are just far beyond
Yeah.
what you would expect just from like looking at individual ants.
Totally. It's like the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
Like new properties kind of appear almost like magically
Yeah.
that just weren't there in like the individual pieces.
That's emergence in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's this fascinating phenomenon where
like
you
what?
get simple interactions between like individual components can lead to these incredibly complex and unexpected outcomes.
Yeah.
At a higher level.
And guess what that's like?
Yeah.
The key part of what makes Bitcoin so intriguing.
Absolutely.
Really?
Bitcoin as a system exhibits some incredible emergent properties that come
Right.
from the interactions of its individual components.
It's like, think of a single Bitcoin node.
Yeah.
By itself, it's not doing much, right?
It's like a lone ant wandering around.
It's like a lone ant just kind of like doing its thing.
Yeah.
But when you connect thousands, even millions of these nodes together,
Right.
all following the same set of rules, boom, you
Yeah.
get this decentralized, secure, and like surprisingly robust network.
It really is like an ant colony springing to life, isn't it? And a big part of how this happens is through this really clever fusion of different technologies.
Okay, break it down for me. What technologies are we talking about here?
So Bitcoin kind of beautifully blends cryptography,
Okay.
distributed computing game theory, and economic incentives.
Mhm.
Each one plays a critical role.
Okay, let's start with cryptography.
Yeah.
I hear that term thrown around a lot, but
Yeah.
like, how does it actually work in Bitcoin?
So cryptography is like the backbone of Bitcoin security. It uses things like digital signatures and hash functions
Okay.
to protect transactions and ensure the integrity of the blockchain.
So digital signature is those like a digital fingerprint for each user?
Exactly.
Okay.
They're unique to each user, and they allow them to authorize transactions.
Okay.
So if you want to send Bitcoin to someone, you use your digital signature to prove that
Wow.
you're the rightful owner of those coins.
That makes sense. So like no one can just pretend to be me and spend my Bitcoin.
Precisely.
Okay.
And hash functions, they're kind of like a special kind of digital fingerprint
Okay.
for each block of transactions.
Okay.
They take all the data in a block and condense it into this unique code.
Yeah.
Any tiny change to the data would completely change the hash.
Wow.
So it's incredibly difficult to tamper with.
So it's like a tamper-proof seal on each block.
It is.
That's pretty clever.
It is.
Yeah.
And then there's the distributed nature of Bitcoin.
Okay.
It uses distributed computing,
Uh-huh.
meaning the network isn't run from one central server.
Okay.
Instead, it's spread across countless nodes all over the world.
So even if like some nodes go offline, the network keeps humming along?
Exactly. That makes it incredibly resilient and resistant to attacks or censorship. It's like the internet itself
Wow.
designed to withstand disruptions.
This is already making me think differently about like how systems can be built. But I'm curious, how does Bitcoin ensure that
Correct.
everyone involved is like playing by the rules?
Right.
That's where game theory comes in, right?
You got it. Bitcoin brilliantly incorporates game theory principles through its proof of work system. Miners who are responsible for adding new blocks to the blockchain are incentivized to act honestly. They get rewarded with Bitcoin for their efforts, but only if they follow the rules.
So it's like a built-in reward system that encourages good behavior.
Precisely. It aligns the incentives of individual miners with the overall health and security of the network.
Okay.
Cheating or trying to double spend coins simply isn't profitable in the long run.
Gotcha. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
But we've also got economic incentives in the mix.
Right.
How do those play a role?
So Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million coins,
Okay.
and the rate at which new coins are created is halved every 4 years. This creates a sense of scarcity, similar to gold or other precious resources.
So it's like digital gold, but its scarcity is built into the code.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And this scarcity combined with growing demand
Yeah.
contributes to Bitcoin's value proposition.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we had this like foundation of cryptography,
Yeah.
distributed computing game theory, and economic principles.
Right.
And from these building blocks, something truly remarkable emerges.
We're about to see the magic of emergence in action.
Oh.
Ready to dive into the specific properties that make Bitcoin so unique?
Absolutely. Let's see how these individual pieces come together
Yeah.
to create something far greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, but I'm like ready to see the magic happen.
Okay.
What are these emergent properties that make Bitcoin like so special?
Well, let's start with validation.
Oh, yeah?
In traditional financial systems,
Yeah.
you rely on institutions like banks
Right.
to validate transactions.
Uh-huh.
But Bitcoin does it differently.
Okay, how so?
Instead of a central authority,
Right.
Bitcoin achieves validation through the
That's not-
collective efforts of its nodes.
Mm.
Each node independently verifies every transaction against the network's rules.
It's like having a global team of auditors like constantly double-checking each other's work.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
This constant distributed verification is a key part of what makes Bitcoin so secure and tamper-proof.
So even if like one node goes rogue or tries to cheat,
Exactly.
it'll be caught by the rest of the network.
It'll get flagged and rejected.
Wow.
And because every node maintains a copy of the blockchain,
Uh-huh.
we get another fascinating property order
Oh.
and shared history.
I'm all ears. What does that mean exactly?
The blockchain acts as this incredible public ledger
Okay.
that meticulously records every transaction
Yeah.
in chronological order.
Okay.
It's like a historical record that everyone can access and verify,
Gotcha.
creating this single agreed-upon history of
Mm.
every Bitcoin transaction ever made.
This is starting to feel like a whole new way of
Yeah.
thinking about trust.
It really is.
It's not trust in like
It's not about
single institution
trusting a single institution
or authority, but it's like,
or a third party.
yeah.
It's trust in the system itself.
Yeah.
Trust in the math, the code, and the collective verification of the network.
That's a pretty powerful shift.
Yeah.
You're essentially
It's fundamental shit.
replacing trust in institutions
Yeah.
with trust in like a protocol.
And that brings us to another critical emergent property security.
Mm.
How do you secure a system
Right.
that has no central control?
Yeah.
No single point of vulnerability?
That's what I've been wondering.
Bitcoin does it through proof of work. Remember that process where miners compete
Yeah.
to solve complex mathematical problems
Mhm.
to add new blocks to the blockchain?
Right. But how does that actually make the network secure?
Well, it takes an immense amount of computational power
Right. Yeah.
to solve those problems. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly expensive and difficult for anyone
Right.
to manipulate the blockchain. It's like this giant decentralized security blanket.
So the more computational power is dedicated to mining,
Exactly.
the more secure the network becomes.
The more secure it becomes.
Okay, cool. And this like decentralized security contributes to
Yes.
another fascinating property, irreversibility.
I love that word. Tell me more.
I love that word.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Once a transaction is buried deep enough in the blockchain,
Uh-huh.
confirmed by enough blocks,
Yeah.
it becomes practically impossible to reverse.
Wow.
It's like setting it in stone, but in this case, it's setting it in code.
So no takebacks.
It is.
That's pretty final.
It is, and this irreversibility is crucial for trust.
Okay.
It ensures that transactions are permanent,
Mhm.
and it prevents double spending.
This is all starting to click together.
Yeah.
Like we've got this distributed network verifying transactions, creating a shared history,
Right.
and then securing it through proof of work, making those transactions irreversible.
Yes.
It's like a chain reaction of emergent properties.
And there's one more we need to touch on: self-reinforcement.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How does Bitcoin reinforce itself?
The more people use Bitcoin, the more miners are incentivized to join the network,
Okay.
which increases its security and
Yeah.
makes it even more attractive to users. It's a positive feedback loop.
So in a way, its success fuels further success.
Exactly.
Okay.
This self-reinforcement is a key part of why
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin has been able to grow and thrive
Yeah.
despite challenges.
We've talked about ant colonies and the internet.
Yeah.
All this talk of self-reinforcement is making me think of another analogy, the human body.
Interesting. How so?
We're made up of trillions of cells,
You're right.
each with its own specific function.
Yeah.
But they all work together to create this complex,
Yeah.
self-sustaining organism.
Uh-huh.
And like the more we use our bodies, the
Oh.
stronger and healthier they become.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It highlights how emergent properties can lead to systems that are not only complex,
Right.
but also surprisingly robust and adaptable.
It's mind-blowing to realize that like these
Okay.
properties weren't explicitly programmed into Bitcoin. They
Yeah.
just like emerged naturally
They emerged organically.
from the interactions of its individual components.
That's the beauty of emergence.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder
Right.
what other unexpected possibilities might
Mhm.
emerge as we continue to explore decentralized systems.
It's like we're only just beginning to understand
Yeah.
the true potential of these ideas.
Absolutely.
But this is a lot to digest.
Sure.
What stands out to you the most
Yeah.
about Bitcoin's emergent properties?
What strikes me the most is how it flips
Okay.
our traditional notions of trust and security on their heads. Instead of relying on central authorities,
Right.
Bitcoin relies on this distributed network,
Yeah.
mathematical principles, and clever incentive structures.
It's a completely different way of thinking.
It really is.
And it has the potential to change
Yeah,
so much more than just finance.
absolutely.
Yeah. It's exciting to think about how these ideas could like be applied in other areas.
Yeah. Imagine like decentralized self-governing systems for everything from like supply chains to social networks.
The possibilities are truly vast,
Yeah.
but like any powerful tool,
Right.
we need to approach it with a healthy dose of caution.
Okay.
There are still challenges to overcome and questions to answer.
What kind of challenges come to mind?
Well, for one, decentralized systems
Yeah.
can be more complex to manage than traditional ones. There's no single point of control,
Right.
which means decision-making can be more distributed
Okay.
and potentially slower.
That makes sense. And what about security?
Yeah, that's a great question.
We've talked about how secure Bitcoin is,
Right.
but are there any unique security risks with
Well,
decentralized systems in general?
while decentralization can make systems more resilient
Okay.
to certain types of attacks,
Uh-huh.
it also introduces new vulnerabilities.
Okay.
For example, if a large portion of the network
Yeah.
were to become compromised,
It could potentially disrupt the entire system.
so there's no such thing as a perfect system,
Exactly.
even a decentralized one.
And then there's the question of regulation.
Okay.
Governments and regulators are still grappling with
Right.
how to approach decentralized systems,
All right.
which often operate across borders
Yeah.
and outside traditional legal frameworks.
It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done
Yeah.
to figure out how to best integrate these systems
Right.
into our existing world.
Absolutely. But that's part of what makes the space so exciting.
Okay.
We're essentially writing the rule book as we go,
Mhm.
exploring new possibilities and figuring out the best ways
Right.
to harness the power of decentralization.
It's almost like a giant social experiment, isn't it?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
We're experimenting with new ways of organizing ourselves
Mm.
and interacting with each other, all facilitated by technology.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
Yeah.
from the fundamental concepts of emergence to the fascinating properties that make Bitcoin unique,
Uh-huh.
and even like the potential challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for decentralized systems.
Mm.
Is there anything else that stands out to you as particularly important for people to understand?
I think the most important takeaway is that emergence
Sure.
is this powerful force that can shape systems
Yeah.
in unexpected and often beneficial ways.
Mm.
By understanding how it works,
Right.
we can start to design systems that are more robust, adaptable, and aligned with our values.
It's like we're unlocking a new level of understanding
Yes.
about how complex systems work,
Uh-huh.
both in nature and in technology.
Yeah.
And that knowledge has the potential to revolutionize
Absolutely.
the way we approach everything,
For sure.
from finance to governance to social organization.
Precisely. And who knows what other surprising and transformative possibilities might emerge as we continue to explore this fascinating space.
Right.
The journey of discovery has just begun.
It's definitely a journey worth taking.
I agree.
And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive
Absolutely.
into emergence in Bitcoin.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps us out. Thank you for listening to the Satoshi Chain Podcast.